During the day, a highway dhaba, a traditional Indian roadside diner, is a loud, bustling pit stop. But at night, on isolated stretches of road, that cheerful energy evaporates. The diner becomes a fragile raft of light, swallowed completely by pitch-black wilderness. This is where a 20-year-old college student named Mohit found himself working the graveyard shift. After his mother suffered a severe fall, the resulting medical debt forced him to take the only job available that fit around his classes. Tonight is his 15th consecutive shift, but more importantly, the lunar calendar has aligned for Amavasya. In Hindu tradition, this is the new moon phase, the absolute darkest night of the month, believed to be the time when restless spirits are active. Economic desperation strips away choices. When hospital bills pile up, a college student doesn't have the luxury of avoiding a desolate, creeping environment. They take the dangerous shift, putting themselves squarely in the path of the unexplained. At 11:30 p.m., the owner packs up to leave, but he gives Mohit two very specific instructions before walking out the door. Do not argue with anyone who arrives after midnight, and under no circumstances can the dhaba be closed. After the owner leaves, a thud draws Mohit's attention to a wooden shelf over the counter. A dust-covered notebook has fallen to the floor, its handwritten title specifically addressing the survival of the moonless night shift. Mohit begins to read. The owner's earlier warnings about midnight customers move from eccentric advice to a documented mandate for his safety. The notebook redefines his presence at the dhaba. Each hour of his shift is now a specific stage in a ritualized survival exercise, governed by the procedures found on these yellowed pages. This flowchart maps out the exact parameters of the first rule. If an arrival happens after 12:30 a.m., the employee must fulfill their demands in total silence. They must never make eye contact. The manual states explicitly that any deviation from this procedure is a fatal error. Right on schedule, the anomaly breaches the property. Out of the fog, a massive truck grinds to a halt at the edge of the light. The cabin is entirely hollowed out by fire. A voice inside croaks for food. As Mohit approaches the vehicle, skeletal hands reach out from the dark cabin. They are stripped of skin, charred black, and dripping with a foul-smelling dark liquid, holding out blood-soaked currency to pay for the meal. Mohit's body practically seizes with panic. Every biological instinct screams at him to sprint in the opposite direction. Instead, he forces himself to stare at the ground, takes the horrific payment, and serves the plates. Surviving an encounter with the anomalous requires a complete shutdown of normal human reactions. Empathy, curiosity, and the fight-or-flight response all have to be artificially suppressed to follow the manual's logic. This graphic breaks down the second protocol. Before the clock strikes 3 a.m., the employee must cook and plate exactly 30 meals. Once the final plate is set down, they must retreat to the back office, turn off every light, and completely ignore the outside world. The physical toll mounts quickly. Time seems to distort inside the kitchen. Mohit cooks in a blind panic, tears streaming down his face as unseen forces breathe against his neck. He sets down the 30th plate just as the clock hits 2:58 a.m. He sprints for the office and throws the deadbolt. Right at 3 a.m., the main breaker shorts out. Plunged into darkness, Mohit listens as massive, heavy footsteps rattle the floorboards. Inhuman, synchronized laughter echoes from every side of the building. The 30-meal quota functions as a mechanical drain on his focus, designed to exhaust his stamina and leave him vulnerable just before the main assault begins. The entities employ an insidious subrule to bypass the locked door. The manual warns that they will replicate human voices, mimicking the sounds of stranded travelers begging for shelter from the freezing cold. Sitting in the pitch-black office, Mohit listens to nails grinding deeply into the wooden door. The voices outside call his name, perfectly imitating people in distress, wearing down his resolve minute by agonizing minute. The auditory assault breaks him. Convinced he might actually be leaving real people outside to die, Mohit peels back the curtain just a fraction to look. Dozens of melted, eyeless faces instantly turn to stare right back at him. The glass shatters immediately. You can barricade a room perfectly, but a supernatural anomaly exploits human psychology. A single second of emotional vulnerability invalidates hours of careful preparation. By daybreak, the siege evaporates. The owner unlocks the dhaba to find the office door still bolted from the inside. He finds Mohit lying on the floor, freezing cold and entirely catatonic. After reviving the student, the owner confesses the true history of the property. Decades ago, a passenger bus stopped at this exact dhaba. Shortly after leaving, the bus caught fire on the highway. All 30 people trapped inside burned alive. Mohit broke the final rule. The entities saw him and they breached the office. He survived only because the owner had bound that specific room with ancient protective mantras. The spirits could break the glass and terrify him, but the wards prevented them from physically killing him. The manual's 30-plate requirement aligns with the historical records. Each dish is a traumatic offering to a passenger, attempting to finish the final meal they started decades ago. Mohit resigns that exact morning. He packs his things and leaves the highway, permanently removing himself from the anomaly's reach. But his departure does nothing to end the haunting. To this day, locals warn travelers driving past the dhaba at 3 a.m. on a moonless night. If you listen closely, you can still hear the metallic clink of plates, the heavy dragging footsteps, and breathless whispers demanding food. A survival manual can keep the worker alive for one night. But the tragedy itself remains scarred into the geography of the highway, proving that some horrors refuse to be laid to rest.